So today I wanted to teach you and talk to you about how to set reading goals for your students. More focused reading goals that you can use your own data that you've already done with your kids to start planning where you can use it even tomorrow, okay? So we are focusing on our data to get some goals set for you. So the way that I've learned to use my data is by using the BAS folders that we use, the benchmark assessment system, your running records that you've already done on your kids, and using this reading strategies book, which we've purchased for all of our reading teachers at our school, and target goals for accuracy, the way our students are reading their words, and the comprehension, understanding what they've read afterwards. So those are our two main focuses today. I see you brought your folders. We're going to dive into your kids and notice what your kids are, how your kids are reading, and what they're understanding at the end of this. I think it's going to work. So, using running records. Yours looks similar to this. This is kind of just a big printout. We want to know why our students are making errors and understand where to go next with it. So we're going to dive into why kids are making them. So does it sound right? Is it making sense? Does it visually look right to them? And make some goals to go from there so that we can see our kids making progress and are able to understand the words that they're reading even at the end of their book. Okay, so I kind of just said this. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the MSV part. So whether you filled it out today or whether you haven't, we can look at some that I brought, and then we can look at yours as well. The M part is the error that our students are making sense to them? Whenever they read through their sentences, does their error make sense still, even if they keep reading? Does it sound right? Are students replacing little words like the and a, and it still sounds right as they keep going? Often if it sounds right, it also kind of makes sense to them, so they don't notice that they're making the error. Does it visually look right? So a lot of what I notice in my classroom and with other students is that they will read just the first part of a word. And so for example here, a T and a T, and then they just make up a word that they know, or they just don't look at the end and they just keep going with it. So usually if it's visually, it doesn't sound right or make sense. So we're gonna look, are our students reading through the words? Are they replacing some sight words with sight words that you could easily practice on? Or is it that they're not reading through the words and not something that they can practice on? So we're gonna target some goals, and I'm gonna give you some things that you can use with some small groups to target those types of things. Okay, so we're noticing what our students are doing well. We're noticing what our students are missing and skipping, and then we're gonna set a goal. So just by looking at this one that I've given you, and I have here as well, it's kind of hard to see on here. This is a running record from a student with a level U book, which is a little above what we are used to. But it had some really good errors that I wanted to show you because I noticed that some of my students are doing the same things, and I'm able to set some goals for that. So you'll notice on this running record it says, what takes place during an earthquake? Huge, Temis, shakes the ground. If you notice where it says tremors, the student started with a T and then kept going. They also noted there was an M and an S. So they're using parts of the word, although it didn't make sense and it didn't really sound right. But visually, that kind of looked right to them. It had a T, an M, and an S. So a goal that I would set for this student is using all parts of the words whenever they read. Okay, so breaking it apart, a strategy that I like to use is I like to cover it up and say read this part, and then read this part that you know, and then read this part that you know. A way that I've been doing that with some of my groups of kids and some of other teachers' groups of kids is by using our ARC cards. You might have heard about these when we talked in RTI. Our dual language students use them. So what they do is they look for words that end with able. This is our suffix cards. Words that end with tion, en, and they're seeing the repetition of those endings, and then they're able to read it by noticing that ending over and over again. Another thing I've used is the prefix cards. So noticing the beginnings over and over again of all these. So noticing the beginnings and understanding what they mean really helps with does it sound right, does it make sense, not only visually. So those are some two strategies that you can use for your students' accuracy if we notice in your data that your students are reading all the way through the word. Okay. and we'll look at your data in just a moment, Sky.
Okay.
I kind of just want to tell you where we're going with this, if it'll go. All right, our next thing is our comprehension goals. I went way too fast. Using the reading strategies book, which I've bookmarked it there for you, is Jennifer Saravallo's hierarchy. So she thinks, according to Jennifer, which is she's studied a lot of things and we've gone to some PDs for her, she thinks that for students that read fiction, they should understand their plot and setting first, and then their characters, and then vocabulary, and then their themes and ideas. The great thing about Jennifer Saravallo is she aligns with Fountas and Pinnell, which is what our assessment system is. So if you look at your benchmark assessment system, benchmark running records, you'll notice, well, this is one of our younger ones. Do you have one that's higher on a grade level? Awesome. All right, if we look at running records, you'll notice questions that align a lot to what Jennifer Saravallo is, our hierarchy. So right here it says, within the text, these questions are asking all about plot and setting. So what happened in there, where were they, just events that happened in order. So these right here, beyond the text, ask all questions about characters. Okay? These right here, about the text, are all theme and ideas about the book. Okay? So by using yes, definitely, and I am going to go forward. That will help you make your notes here from what I just said. So this is plot and setting, the top. The second one almost always asks questions about characters and how characters change. And then our next one always asks questions about theme. Awesome. Whenever you're, we're going to look at your data in just a moment. Whenever you're looking at your data, the reason why I think this is pretty important is because you can use this book now to set goals. You notice this student, whenever you did this running record, they did really good on their events and plot and setting because you scored them a 3. Right here on the characters, you notice that they got a lot of the questions, but you scored them a 2, and then the theme and ideas a 1. So as the story progressed, they were having a more difficult time understanding what really happened in the book. They got the general idea of the events that happened, but then diving deeper into themes and characters, it was struggling for them. This is a 3, so your student really understands plot and setting. This one right here, you said a 2, they need some more work on characters. So by using Jennifer Saravallo's book, you'll notice that right here, this is green, plot and setting. All of the green are strategies that you can use for plot and setting. Characters is this blue. So all of this colored blue is characters. And then the themes and ideas is pink. So all the pinks are little lessons that you can use for those students. Awesome. So I've already marked characters, not knowing that you would have a character. But these are all of the lessons that you could now teach this student to start developing their understanding of characters. The great thing about this is that all of your students have running records because you've done the BAS, or at least those that aren't on grade level. And now you can understand, do they need more development on their plot and setting, their characters, or their theme? Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 minutes for you and I to work together to kind of do some of your students and write them down on this that I provided for you. Okay. That way you can walk away understanding groups that you can pull with the lessons. And I'm going to set a timer. There we go. Okay. So this was Jackson. And the reason why I put the level there is because there are some that are really good for like C through N, and some that would be best for like levels N through Z.
Gotcha.
So you can even group them by students that are more developed as well.
Okay.
So this student was Jackson, did you say?
Yes.
And he needs more development on comprehension characters.
So characters.
Yeah, I would just put characters, and then whenever you have all of them, you can go through and like select one of these lessons.
About that one.
Well, right now, because you want to do plot and setting, you really want his development of characters. He's not going to be able to understand the theme until he understands the characters fully. So this one was Jackson's. I want to make sure you put it in the right place so you don't lose it. Okay, your next one, Nathan. And you have him down as a Q. And Nathan has plot and setting down, but his characters is a 1, so he definitely needs some development on that. And the thing I love about this is that they're like really aligned with with Fonte Pinal and Jennifer Saravallo, so it's like you can simply just go through and look through your running records and notice what you scored them. Reading conferences are best to have with kids, of course, but since we've already done the running records and the data, we can just look at it. So like this one's a little different because they are lower, so usually levels below L will only have these questions. Well, this one was independent on this, was he? Or was this an accuracy one? Independent. So it's best to do the instructional because the independent, they usually have either all threes or like this one. So like flat and setting, they could develop a little bit more. And I'm surprised that their character was so good. They must really understand that. But then after they understand plot and setting, I would definitely jump to the theme.
That one.
Okay. Plot and setting is one of the easiest ones to get because it's like the order of events and identifying importance.
Just grab this one. This was an L. And then we'll just jump straight to the theme.
Okay, so now that we've done a few, we're about to run out of time, so let's talk about, so you have 4 here that we've scored, and I'm already noticing a pattern here of Jackson and Nathan both need work on characters. So as you notice that, and I'm sure as you fill out the rest of this form, you'll notice other students need work on characters.
And they're in the same
You
area.
can look at any of these. So those 2 are N through Z. Okay, so any of these lessons would work. So as you flip through, let's look at one. Characters comparison. Maybe yes, but why? 13. It will give you like little anchor charts that you can hang above your use with your guided reading strategy groups. See mine above there. So like you can draw this. Sometimes I give it like on a sticky note for when they're using it during their independent time. So this is almost like having little reading conferences because the students will have their own independent books instead of like a guided reading book. Or you could do guided reading if their levels match a lot. This one is an NQ, so that's pretty far apart. But what I do is I ask my students to bring just their library books with them, and then I hand them the sticky note with this on it, and then I have a reading conference with them as they're reading their own independent books. So that's teaching students like, you can use the strategies even with your own books, not just the guided reading books that I'm giving you during group.
And you give each kid their own sticky note
Right.
for their what they need.
Yes, and I do have it actually. Jennifer Saravallo has a really easy bookmark here, and you write their name and their goal, and then they can stick the sticky notes. Here's one of my students in particular. He had a couple of things going here, print marking and comprehension, so it was on the back. But his was plot and setting, so I just drew that. So then they interact with the sticky note as they're reading.
Gotcha.
And we do it together and practice it as a group, and then they can do it independently. And then whenever you have individual reading conferences, you can notice that they're using this book as well. Okay. So that's the way to use your data to be able to plan really quick goals for your students with what you already have. If it comes a time that your students are progressing on levels, you might just sit and have like a reading conference with them with either a running record or a piece of paper and take running record and ask them some questions. And I like to ask questions that are very similar to like these, like what happened in the story, and take notes. The characters, I ask them like, how did your character change over time? Questions that are similar to this so that I'm following the same format that they're assessed on. It's a lot easier for us to use the same type of language to understand which category it falls in. So this is a great resource to be able to start pulling strategy groups right away for you to be able to start making progress on the things your kids need, not just the levels, but like my kids are really not understanding theme at the level N, and that's really what's going to get them to the level O. Okay? All right.